let's return to our top story, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which is now into the 19th day. For the very latest, we can cross to the Ukrainian city of Lviv, where Arise correspondent Philip Crowther joins us now. Philip, thanks for joining us on Newsday. Bring us up to speed with the latest peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. There are signs of progress on some fronts, but how definitive is it?
Well, I think it's still a big question on whether we can actually call these peace talks, because nothing close to a general ceasefire or to a peace agreement has come out of these talks so far. It is the fourth time that these delegations see each other, though the first time that this is being done via video. There are delegations from Ukraine and Russia who have met on the border between Ukraine and Belarus 3 times now, this time via video. We're still waiting to see what the outcome of these talks might be. Obviously, these two sides go into this with completely differing views on what can be done here on the ground in Ukraine. And of course, the demand from Ukraine is a relatively simple one right now. It is for there to be, at the very least, local ceasefires to get civilians out of besieged cities and to get humanitarian aid in. Better still, a general ceasefire. From the Russian point of view, there are the same demands, essentially, that we heard from Russia before this invasion began, and we've heard from Russian President Vladimir Putin since. He wants guarantees that Ukraine will not join NATO or the European Union. He also wants Ukraine to accept the Russian annexation of Crimea in the south. He also wants Ukraine accept the independence of the so-called separatist republics in the east, in the Donbass region. All of these things that were rejected by Ukraine before the invasion, during the invasion, and presumably still during these talks. So what can be achieved? Well, those local ceasefires. The most crucial one would be in the city of Mariupol, in the southeast of the country. Any attempts to establish ceasefires and humanitarian corridors in and safe passage out for civilians have failed so far. There will presumably be an attempt to get one of those up and running and actually functioning as well. And then one other thing that will be discussed is maybe to take these discussions, these negotiations to the highest possible level. That would be a meeting between President Zelensky of Ukraine and Putin of Russia. We are still a long way off, but this is a meeting that has been suggested by European leaders, by Turkey, by Israel, and also by Ukrainian President Zelensky himself. All of those requests or demands have been ignored by Vladimir Putin so far. It looks like there will have to be further negotiations, first of all, at least that appears to be the Russian point of view, before there is to be a meeting at the very highest level.
And President Zelensky is continuing to warn the West that this war could easily spread into neighboring countries and envelop NATO and the direct conflict with Russia. Can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, Zelensky essentially says it's only a matter of time before Russian missiles strike the territory of a NATO member country. Most likely he's thinking about Poland, because that attack on a target not far from here and not far at all from the Polish border, a military training base and academy, that brought Russian missiles very, very close to the border with Poland. Those explosions were heard in Poland. In fact, some of them were seen from inside Poland. So there is a fear that this war is moving westwards and could possibly remain in this part of the country, because we are here in an area that is considered essentially pretty peaceful within a country at war, a place that is safe for those millions, 2.8 million refugees already that have left Ukraine. For those refugees, a safe place before they move on and leave the country altogether. This is also a crucial place. Lviv is this city for humanitarian aid passing through from across the Polish border, for example, into Ukraine, where it is so badly needed. And then, more importantly, from Russia's point of view, there are weapons shipments that make their way from Poland, but also other neighboring countries with Ukraine, these coming from NATO member countries, into Ukraine. Those weapons that the Ukrainian armed forces need so badly. And Russia says that those are legitimate targets, and maybe the fact that Russia struck a target so close to a border with a NATO member country is a bit of a sign that Vladimir Putin is willing to attack possibly weapons shipments very, very close to the border of a NATO member country.
All right, Philip, what's the latest on the battlefront today? Are the Russians pressing ahead with their assault on Kyiv?
Yes, absolutely. There are no particularly important advances to note right now on the ground, but that does not mean that there haven't been artillery strikes on many places, especially around the capital city of Kyiv. We all know that one of the objectives would appear to be from Russia to take over the capital city, essentially, or if that can't be done, to essentially encircle it, to besiege it potentially in the future. So those Russian troops on the ground are trying to get as close as possible to the capital and get around the capital from all sides. So what we've seen today is further artillery strikes on northwestern suburbs. The likes of Irpin, for example, that you might have heard of over the last few days. There have been artillery strikes there, but there have also been some in very close to the capital city, to the north, for example. And in some cases, these are missiles that are intercepted by the aerial defense of Ukraine and that then land in residential areas. The closer Russian troops get, the more they try to strike targets close or within the Ukrainian capital Kyiv itself, the more there is that risk that there could be missiles shot down by the Ukrainian air defense and that they could land on residential areas, as has been the case today.
Philip, can you describe the mood in Lviv where you are? Are people nervous about an attack also taking place there?
Well, look, it's calm, but it's more tense than it was before, because this was a place that had been entirely spared from Russian attacks during this invasion of Ukraine. But now on the 19th day, well, there is a little bit of more of a tense atmosphere, because those who've come here, for example, from other parts of Ukraine, felt a certain amount of safety here, but that is now not necessarily gone, but diminished, and the inhabitants of Lviv, of course, also nervous about what could come next, about this war extending westwards and maybe staying here. There are other potential targets here for Putin's forces. That's the simple truth here. But this is such a crucial place right now in this war, not necessarily tactically for Vladimir Putin. No, it's more on the logistical side. This is a place where refugees arrive and can then depart from and get abroad when they want to leave this country at war. But the humanitarian aid coming through here is so important. And for the Ukrainian armed forces, well, there are those weapons shipments that now, with what we've seen over the last few days, they might risk being attacked by Russian forces. It hasn't happened yet, but I think there are more worries that that could happen in the near future.
Arise international correspondent Philip Crowther, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and please stay safe.